Alright, hello everybody. Friendly Red here, powered up and ready to give my initial impressions on Dragon Ball Sparking Zero, also known as the glorious return of the much beloved Budokai Tenkaichi series after almost 20 years. You know, it's kinda crazy to think that it hasn't actually been that long of a wait since this game was revealed back in December of 2023. I wasn't really actively keeping up with new trailers and the like for the game, but I don't know, it felt like it was longer than just shy of a year on from the reveal. I ain't complaining though, and I'm sure many other Dragon Ball fans aren't either, as it would have been criminal to have us wait for an extended period of time after revealing something as massive as the return of the Budokai Tenkaichi series. At the time of making this script, Sparking Zero hasn't officially launched yet, but the early access period has been live for about 2 days now. I've been playing a lot of the game in that time, and thoroughly enjoying every single second of it. So, as per usual with new releases that I enjoy, I figured it would be fun to relay my thoughts, my experiences, my initial impressions on the game thus far, and focus in on what I really like about the game, while also mentioning some downsides and nitpicks I have, as while the overall package is stellar, there are some things that could be better or improved, methinks. With that out of the way, let's get into the discussion proper. It's best to start with an explanation as to what Sparking Zero is, and to do that properly, I'll need to go over what Budokai Tenkaichi, which I'm just going to call BT from now on, is, as there's a good chance many Dragon Ball fans and players today won't know of that series, or have played it for themselves. Dragon Ball Sparking Zero is a modern-day recreation/continuation of the BT series, which were a trilogy of 3D arena fighting games that released back on the PS Double and the Wii. Rather than focusing on being balanced, ultra-competitive fighting games like Tekken 8, Mortal Kombat 1, or even Dragon Ball FighterZ, the BT series instead focused on recreating the over-the-top insanity, power, and spectacles of the fights from the original series, and translating it into an interactive experience fans of any age or skill level could enjoy. There isn't really any complex stick motions or button combos to perform here like in traditional fighting games, and regardless of what characters you like or choose to play as, the general controls will always be the same. Now, I cannot personally speak to any specific oddities, quirks, or features that were or weren't present in the original 2 games of the BT series, as I myself only ever played the 3rd game. However, I don't think this is too big an issue, as really, the 3rd game of the BT series was easily the best of the trilogy, and for a long time has remained a legendary title amongst the lineage of Dragon Ball games, and anime games in general. Now, why is that? Well, aside from the refinements and additions to the general gameplay and presentation one would expect from a sequel, a big reason BT3 was so popular was due to its roster of playable characters, of which there were 162 to choose from, which to this day is still pretty nuts. You could genuinely play as basically any and all characters from Dragon Ball, Dragon Ball Z, and Dragon Ball GT in one singular game, and just made for the ultimate Dragon Ball toy box dream match simulator. There was and still is something special seeing all these different characters from all these different times and stories together in one place, and I think this, alongside the accessible and fun fighting gameplay, is what made BT3, and the series as a whole, special for myself and many others. Sadly, after BT3's launch in 2007, we never really got a proper new game like it for quite some time. There were some games that tried to capture that same magic, that same spark that BT3 had, with releases like the Raging Blast titles and the Xenoverse games, and while they were fine games in their own rights, they just weren't the same as BT. Thankfully, the stars, or perhaps it's better to say the Dragon Balls aligned, and almost 20 years on from BT3, we're now graced with the existence of Sparking Zero, a proper, wholly new entry in the BT series. And really, you can take everything I said about BT3 and apply it here. This really is, in essence, BT4, and it looks, feels, and plays very identically to how I remember BT3, which is a very good thing. Of course, it's been quite some time since I've played BT3 myself, and there are of course new mechanics and other aspects that make this game stand apart from its predecessors. To start, I have to commend the presentation of the game. Obviously, yes, the characters and environments look amazing here, almost as if the 2D art of these characters and worlds were ripped from the anime and translated into 3D. However, I think what surprised me the most is just how much personality the game has, even outside the standard gameplay. The standout has to be the main menus used to navigate through different modes in the game, as they essentially are all little set pieces full of fun references and character interactions, texturalized as Goku using instant transmission to warp around to all kinds of different landmarks within the world. I also really love how well the areas he goes to correspond to the selected menu option or game mode. For example, when you want to partake in some standard battles or the tournament modes in the game, Goku warps over to the World Martial Arts Tournament arena, where he then interacts with other contestants waiting around, all while you hear the announcer in the background asking questions to other contestants. It really is a great touch, and really adds to the charm and character of the game, even when you aren't playing actual matches. Though, on the topic of matches and characters, The frantic, fast-paced solo or team-based battles of BT3 return here in Sparking Zero, and they're just as excellent here as they were in that game. Again, it's been far too long since I've played BT3, but this game feels even more crazy and fast than what I remember, although part of that could be due to the increase in performance and fidelity. The high-speed movement and flying, key charging, rapid-fire combos, destructible terrain, warp hits, explosive special moves, transformations, it's all here, and looking and playing better than ever. And of course, the characters. BT3's roster of 162 was already impressive, especially for a game from 2007, but Sparking Zero managed to take an already impressive and large roster and make it larger and impressive. Here at launch, Sparking Zero offers 182 characters to choose from, covering pretty much the entire history of the series. Of course, the characters that were introduced in Dragon Ball Super make up the bulk of the newcomers, alongside many of the mainstays from Dragon Ball Z and Dragon Ball GT. And yes, the jokey and weird characters still remain here in Sparking Zero, as one would hope and expect, so you can still meme it up with picks like Mr. Satan, Fat Janemba, Cybermen, Kui, and more. They even included Mini Goku from the new upcoming show, Dragon Ball Daima, as a pre-order bonus, which is actually really cool. As for modes, there's a decent selection of ways to engage in battle here in Sparking Zero. Aside from standard fights against CPUs or other players, you can participate in tournaments either off or online, with different settings and modifiers available to change as you see fit. Then there's the episode battles, which essentially serve as this game's story mode. Rather than trying to be the, 9,000th and first time retelling the story of Dragon Ball, the main episode battle mode instead has you select one of several predetermined characters, playing through highlights and pivotal moments and fights tied to that character, with accompanying cutscenes and dialogue included for story purposes. From what I've seen and played so far, these mainly follow the original story beat for beat, though there are some side routes and what-if scenarios that can pop up here too, which is pretty neat. In addition to the story episodes, there are also the custom episodes. The game comes with some pre-made episodes for you to sample, and these take the form of mini, fan-made stories and scenarios you can go through, complete with custom text dialogue, title cut-ins, and some basic animations and cutscenes. The pre-included ones are cool enough, but the real standout feature of this mode is the ability for players to make their own custom episodes and share them for others to play, almost like a Dragon Ball take on Mario Maker. I've not delved too much into this mode, but I'm sure people are going to go wild with these, especially once the game officially launches. I did try one that basically recreated the Super Broly movie though, and that was pretty fun. So overall, I love pretty much anything and everything Sparking Zero has on offer. It delivers a fun, modern version of the BT series with beautiful visuals, a fun presentation, fast, explosive, and accessible gameplay, and an absolutely stacked roster of 182 characters, with even more coming with future DLC. I did just say pretty much though, which implies there are some aspects of Sparking Zero that I don't enjoy. To be honest, what I'm about to discuss aren't exactly dislikes or negatives, but rather small nitpicks I have that could easily be addressed with patches, DLC, or potentially with mods here on the PC version. You know how earlier I said the character roster covers, essentially, the entire series history? Well, that's mostly true, but there is a distinct OG Dragon Ball shaped hole in it that makes me kinda sad. Look, I get it, the original Dragon Ball isn't nearly as popular as Z, GT, and Super, and it hasn't exactly aged all too gracefully either. However, it's still full of hugely important moments, fights, and characters, and to have only one representative in the base roster of Sparking Zero in the form of Teen Goku is just kinda disappointing, really. I'd certainly love for most, if not all, the missing OG Dragon Ball characters to return, but at the very least I think they should get some of the heavy hitters in, such as Demon King Piccolo, Arale, Grandpa Gohan, and Tao Pai Pai, to name a few. And speaking of the character roster, I'm kinda disappointed in the way you select them. I understand that when you have almost 200 characters to choose from, a simple stacked list of them that you scroll through is the most efficient way to go about it, but I was really hoping for something like they showed in the numerous character trailers to be in the final game. I think at least an option to have a more stylized, artsy menu would be nice for those of us who want it, and again, updates or mods for the PC version could change this, but as it stands, I find the current character select to be pretty dull and uninteresting to look at, which is in stark contrast to the other menus in the game that we discussed earlier. And lastly on the list of nitpicks, presentation of certain elements and sections of the game can feel a bit mismatched and low budget, particularly in the story episodes. While I don't care too much about this myself, as this mode is pretty whatever to me personally, I do agree with others that it feels pretty cheap to have just still images and stilted, mostly static cutscenes for most of the story and dialogue sections. Like, this is Dragon Ball. Dragon Ball, for Kami's sake. Why are we cheaping out on the presentation of important story segments and dialogue? I would have preferred them to use scenes from the anime or something over this, because what we currently have just feels cheap, rushed, and like they didn't really care too much. Okay, I know that was sounding a bit overly negative there in the last segment, but I do want to reiterate that all those topics I just discussed are very, very minor flaws in what is otherwise a fantastically fun Dragon Ball game and 3D arena fighter in general. The core of the game is what matters the most, that being the huge character roster and fast but accessible combat. And that is absolutely delivered here. This has already become my favorite Dragon Ball game in recent memory, and one I'm going to continue to enjoy for a long, long time to come. Thank you, Spike and Bandai Namco. You've made me and many other BT fans very happy with this one. I look forward to seeing what characters make it in via the DLC, and of course what the modding scene will be like here on PC. But, with all that being said, I think that'll do it for this video. If you made it to the end, I thank you for watching. Your continued viewership and support is greatly appreciated. Before we wrap it up here, I also want to give a quick notice that this will be my last video for a tiny bit here on the channel, as I'll be doing some traveling soon. I may have one more video out later this month, but if not, my next video should be my Reds Radar for November. Thank you for your understanding. And if you want more content from me while I'm gone, you can check out my other YouTube channel, which houses the VODs for my streams. I'm currently making my way through the Silent Hill 2 remake, and oof, man, it's really, really good. Anyways, that's enough blabbing, yapping, and vocal cord moving from me for now. Thank you all again so much, and as always, I'll see you next time.